had been a Catholic. And that's why they kind of wanted to kick him off, because the Catholics and the Protestants, as much as they both followed the same faith of Christianity, had very different political views with regard to what the king actually meant. And essentially the Protestants had a more belief that the government was involved in it. It was more of a governmental rule. Cutting a long story short, amongst the Highlanders, King James was very popular because he'd sort of taken a very soft approach, a gentle wooing, let's say, of the Highlanders. He believed that their support, because there was strong Catholic support in the Highlands, because the Catholic faith had been very, very sort of strong and very widespread throughout the Highlands. Similarly in Ireland, so that's why James had so much support. He was defeated in 1689 at the Battle of the Boyne. Sorry, 1690, end of 1689, 1690, and the Battle of the Boyne, which essentially made Ireland a bit of a rough place for a good few hundred years. So because of this, there became quite a strong following for people who wanted to support James. Because he'd been booted out and he was now in exile in France, there was an awful lot of people who gathered round. One such guy was the Viscount Dundee, or Bonnie Dundee as he was named. Now they from the Latin for James, they used the name Jacobus, and it translated to Jacobites. Not that they were biting anybody, but they were the Jacobites. They were supporters of King James. Pretty much their actual allegiance to James kind of came second to their want to defend their way of life, especially in the Highlands. That's where most of the Jacobite support came from. As I'm telling this, I'm just going to point out a rather beautiful waterfall that we're going to pass. I'm going to slow right down for it because there's nothing behind us, just so you can get a lovely view. It's on the left-hand side. So these Jacobites essentially were strong supporters. One such very, very staunch supporter was Macian MacDonald of the Clan MacDonald of Glencoe, which is where we are now. This is the pass of Glencoe that we're entering. This is where this story pretty much took place. King William of Orange wanted the Highlanders, he wanted them to sign a document swearing allegiance, recognising him as their true monarch. Now many signed up merely to try and maintain, sort of good terms with the monarchy, to maintain, anything for a quiet life. Whereas some seriously objected on the grounds that they were Jacobites, that they didn't want, they were worried that this parliamentary rule would ruin their way of life, because the Highlanders kind of ruled themselves. They had a big way of life to defend. One such big guy that really sort of objected was Macian MacDonald of the Clan MacDonald of Glencoe. He was the clan chief. They lived just down here. The deadline to sign this document was the 31st of December 1691. Now, after much persuasion, Macian MacDonald finally signed, from sort of advice saying that there was great fear for his clan, that repercussions might be pretty substantial and pretty hideous. So he eventually signed, but he signed the document very late, and word got back to William of Orange, and he chose to make an example of the Glencoe MacDonalds. So he employed the Campbells of Glenlyon, who were kind of the English, well, the king's kind of servants in Scotland. They were quite sucking up to the William of Orange, and they wanted to settle the score with the MacDonalds. In the winter, keep in mind this was hideous, freezing blizzard winter. He sent the Campbells into Glencoe, under the pretence of collecting taxes in the area. They stayed with the MacDonalds for 13 days and 13 nights. Despite being hideous enemies, the MacDonalds welcomed them in because of the hideous weather. They welcomed them into their home and fed them and gave them a place to stay in warm cover. Unaware of the fact that on the very early morning of the 14th of February 1692, orders got round and the massacre of Glencoe began. Essentially, the Campbells killed 42 MacDonalds, starting with Macian MacDonald as he lay in his bed. Many more fled into the hills. Now, keep in mind, this was hideous winter, blizzard conditions, major sub-zero temperatures. Many died in the snow because of this. This story got back to the public. It actually had the adverse effect. Instead of scaring the Highlanders into thinking that if we didn't go along with King William of Orange, we would be in deep trouble. In fact, what happened was it strengthened the resolve of the Jacobites and gave the Campbells a bad name in Scotland for all of history, because not because they killed the MacDonalds, because clans were constantly killing each other all the time, but because they betrayed the Highland law of hospitality. So, pretty dark story, but if you want to hop off and get a quick photographic opportunity here, guys, it is possibly one of the most stunning places. These are the three sisters of Glencoe. The village of Glencoe used to sit just in the glen here next to the river. So just a quick 5-minute chance to breathe in some fresh air and get some stunning photographs.